What is up, guys? My name is Daniel Smith with Brew Roasting Company, and today we're going to talk about cold brew. So cold brew is an amazing way to be able to prepare and to drink coffee. Cold brew is also one of the most caffeinated ways to be able to drink coffee. Now, in my espresso video, I talked to you guys about contact time. Contact time is the amount of time that the water is touching the ground coffee. In cold brew, that's the longest contact time. Espresso, your water is going to be touching your ground coffee for about 30 seconds. You want your cold brew to brew overnight for at least 12 hours. So that is a long time for your water to be touching your ground coffee. Something else I want to say on the front end of this video is when you're preparing your cold brew, you want to use cold water. You don't want to use hot water to do this because it'll bring too much extraction too quick. We want this to happen low and slow, if you know what I mean. So we want this coffee to steep all night long. So that being said, we're going to use cold water to make our cold brew. So a few things that you're going to need to make cold brew is a half gallon to a gallon size pitcher. You're going to need a coffee sock or another cold brew brewer. Here at Brew Roasting Company, we have these coffee socks right here, and we actually now have these on our website at brewroastingco.com. So if you don't have a coffee sock, we would love for you to purchase a coffee sock through our website, and we have those there for you. They look like this. So you'll need your pitcher, you'll need your coffee sock, and then we've had this question, what roast level of coffee would you recommend using for your cold brew? The answer to that question is I would recommend dark roast. In trying coffee and in experiments with coffee, I've discovered, and this is just a fact, that when you make a pour over or you make a French press and you drink like a light roasted coffee, that acidity heightens the more that the coffee cools. So if you try that coffee when it's scalding hot, which I like coffee pretty warm, it's going to taste a certain way, but if you allow that coffee to cool off a bit, it brightens it up. That being said, with cold brew, it's cold. Believe it or not. So with cold brew being cold, if you were to use a light roasted coffee, it would be very acidic. Now, here's the deal. I want to say this on all these videos. Coffee is a beautiful thing that we each get to be experimental with. I'm not the be-all, end-all in the knowledge of coffee. I'm still learning quite a bit myself, and I love to experiment with coffee. So that being said, if you would like to try a light roast in your cold brew maker, go for it. Try it out. See what you think about it. You may be able to make a light roast in a cold brew and mix it with a San Pellegrino, a sparkling water, and maybe just a little bit of simple syrup, and you could have a cold brew lemonade because the acidity in that light roast is going to be pretty tart. But there's ways to use it. It's fun. But for this video, I did use our Guatemalan dark roasted coffee, and it makes a delicious cold brew. So let's get started. We're going to start by taking our Guatemalan dark roast, and we are going to weigh out 158 grams because we're going to be brewing a half gallon of cold brew. So if you're going to brew a full gallon of cold brew, you're going to want to double this recipe. But I want to remind you that this coffee sock with the coffee in it is going to take up some of the space inside of your container. So make sure that you're brewing the right amount for the amount of space that you have. If you have a gallon-sized pitcher, you may be hard-pressed to fit the correct amount of water in there with the coffee sock and the ground coffee. So we're going to grind 158 grams to make a half gallon of cold brew. Now it's important, the grind setting that we want for cold brew, we're actually going to grind it coarse. So we're going to move our grinder all the way over to the coarse setting for cold brew, because again, this water is going to have the contact time for at least 12 hours overnight. We don't want to make it too fine, because then we're going to get too much extraction out of our coffee. We don't want it to be too strong. We want it to be a good, smooth glass of cold brew. So we're going to grind that coarse, and we're going to get that all ground there. And then we're going to take our coffee sock and we're going to pour the coffee into our coffee sock. Get that all leveled out in there. And once you get your coffee sock filled with the amount of coffee you're going to be using for your cold brew, we're going to take our container, our half-gallon jar here, and we're going to fill it halfway up with water. No coffee yet, just water inside of the jar, and fill that halfway up. Once we get our container halfway filled with water, we're then going to put our coffee sock down into the jar. Now I want to encourage you, be careful. You don't want to go spilling your coarse coffee all into your water. That's what the coffee sock's for, is to be a filter. So we're going to put the bottom, you may have to move the coffee around so it'll fit through the opening of your jar or your container and get it in there. And then you want to take the lip, the top of your coffee sock, and put it over the top of your container, and take that drawstring and just pull it tight. Get it to where it's not going to fall off, because we're about to pour water into that coffee sock through the coffee into the container. So get that good and secured there, and then we're going to get, again, cold water, and we're going to pour that cold water now into the coffee sock, through the coffee, into the container. And we're going to fill it up the rest of the way. Now I want to say, you want to save just a little bit of room, because you're going to have to put the rest of that coffee sock down in there. So save a little bit of room at the top of your container for the rest of the coffee sock to go in there. So once you get done pouring the cold water in, you take the lip of your coffee sock off, or you take the edge of your coffee sock off the lip of your container, pull that drawstring pretty good and tight. You don't want to leave that thing open in any way, because again, the ground coffee could possibly come up through there, and we don't want grounds in our cold brew. So pull that tight, and then you're going to put the top of the coffee sock on down in there into your container, but keep your drawstring out. Keep your drawstring out of there. Then you're going to take your lid to your container, and you're going to screw it down on top of your container, leaving the drawstring out so you can get the coffee sock out tomorrow morning once this is done. Now comes the waiting. Our favorite part of making coffee, right? The patience. And this one takes more patience than any, because it takes all night long to brew it. But I want to encourage you, it's worth the wait. Again, as most things, anything worth waiting for is good. So let's do it. Let's put that up, and let's enjoy our evening. We can spend some time with our family. We can drink some of our new Beulah decaf coffee, Swiss water processed, delicious. Spend some time with your family. Maybe sing a song, or play a board game, or watch a YouTube video. Roots and Refuge is very wonderful. You can do these things overnight and then get you a good 8 hours of sleep, because tomorrow morning you're going to have some delicious wake me up juice waiting on you in your refrigerator. And let me tell you, cold brew is a delicious, delicious drink. And it's smooth, There's not a lot of acidity there. You're going to have a real smooth, delightful flavor there. And it's jam-packed full of caffeine. For myself, I travel and play music and things like that. So when I've got to travel late at night, I love to get me a cold brew and put me a double shot of espresso in it and just sip on it throughout the night. I mean, I can sip on a cold brew for hours and hours. And it's really, really delicious. Now, I want to tell y'all a disclaimer here, okay? If you make cold brew and you do this, the next morning you want to unscrew that lid and you want to pull that coffee sock out of that container. Don't leave your coffee sock with those grounds down in that cold brew for multiple days. I found that out the hard way. It will just get stronger and stronger and stronger. And we don't need anybody having heart problems over drinking coffee. Make sure that you pull that out of there after about, I would say at the most 24 hours. That should be your max. Don't do no more than that. But again, coffee's experimental, and if you want to make some juice that will really send you over the moon and stars, feel free to leave it in there, but it's just going to get more and more intense the longer that you leave that in there. So, hope you've enjoyed this video on how to make cold brew. It's a pretty simple method on how to make cold brew, but there is a way that I've learned how to make it that produces a really delicious drink. So I hope this has been insightful. I hope this has been helpful. Let me know in the comments below what you would like to see in these videos. Is there something that you would like to see from us? Another brewing method, a recipe? Let us know what you'd like to see, because we sure enough want to give it to you. So thank you for joining me again here at Beulah Roasting Company. And until next time, cheers. That's good.